Do it. Do it. We're a couple minutes early to make up for all the times we're a couple minutes late.
It would take more than a couple minutes to make up for all the times we've been late, right?
You can see the messy building behind us. We've decided to come over into the long arm building that is not redone because that's where my sewing machine is. So you have to put up with the rough looking walls until we get it all fixed. So we don't have anybody on yet.
It's because you're early. Nobody even bothered to check this early because they're like, she's not
2
on
minutes.
yet. Oh, some people coming
So
now.
we got somebody. Lynn Noggle.
Where do you see that?
I just know it.
Oh.
Lynn Noggle, Audrey Adams. We have quite a few regulars.
We do.
Okay. Tonight, Peggy Abbott's here. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Peggy was in the shop this week.
Oh, there's Vicky.
Vicky and Shirley.
I always feel like we should have that mirror.
I know.
Romper.
I know. Oh, there's Marilyn. It's supper time at Marilyn's, I think.
Oh, it probably is.
It probably
I know,
is.
this probably isn't an ideal time for a lot of people.
Okay, so we are here to do our second week with the sewing bee with the perennial fabric, which we could show them. We could take them over and show them the quilt. Why don't I do that? Let's go show them the quilt because we had people that messaged and wanted to see the quilt, and I couldn't find it. And when I came over here tonight, I found it.
That up 1 week, but maybe it was the week before. It wasn't last week. It must have been the week before. This one's short enough. I can hold it up.
So there's the quilt, the sew along that's going on right now. So there's the quilt.
Now, when you guys do yours, it's bigger than this. This
Exactly.
is like
That's just
downsized as a shop
Yeah,
sample or whatever.
but that's the actual quilt that somebody's going to win. So we've got a few names in. Do we want to show them this while we're here?
Sure.
So this is Twyla's. It's just coming out of the frame. Isn't that cute?
Very happy with it.
Okay.
And you guys have had some awesome quilts.
I know, right? We have
Everybody's imagination has been like
we have
in
really
overdrive.
enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's for sure. So yeah, for anybody that's thinking, how do we win that quilt? If you purchase the kit, we don't have your name, we don't know who you are. You need to send us a message and say, I purchased a kit, and we'll get your name in the spin wheel. But we also are left with a few bundles.
You don't have any kits left, just bundles.
I can make them into kits. I haven't made them into kits.
Oh, but you
I do-
still have enough to do
I
kits.
have enough to do kits. If anybody wants a kit for that quilt. If you just want to buy the bundle, the regular price was $144 and it's on sale for $125. We only have a few of those left. That's how you get your name into the spin wheel to win that quilt. So whoever buys a bundle or who has bought a kit, your name will go in as long as, make sure you send us a message, Tina, because once they're gone, I did not keep track of names. So once you send us your name will go in the spin wheel. Okay, so
tonight we're just picking some random things throughout the pattern to talk about. Last week we talked about half square triangles. This week we're going to talk about flying geese. We're going to show the ultimate flying geese ruler, the lock block flying geese rulers, and then we're going to talk about some of the foundation paper pads that you can get that do flying geese too. We're going to demo one of those.
we're going to show this one too for flying geese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How to use a regular ruler to square up a flying geese if you don't have a specialty ruler, right? Like if you're just starting out, sometimes you don't have all the gadgets,
bells
right?
and whistles.
Yeah, because it takes a while to build up some of that stuff, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is.
Should I get the camera off so that I can look down at your work?
Probably.
Okay, I'll do that now.
Probably.
Sorry about that noise.
So this is the flying. So this is the one that we pulled from the shop, and it was a 3-pack of the lock block. It sells for $80. So this has the 1.5 by 3 finished, the 2 by 4 finished, and the 3 by 6 finished in
If
this
anybody
kit.
wants 10% off that set because it's now used.
Because it's been cracked open.
And same with the half square
square-
triangles from
which
last week.
This was last week's right there. These
They're
two.
10% off of what they were.
Yeah, the half square
because
triangle.
they are now used because we used them for demos.
Yeah. So, I can tell you that I am more impressed with the block lock flying geese
Then the half square triangle.
than the half square triangle. Just personally. Like, I think I really like how these work. I do. So, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a ridge here that you can actually put your finger right in, like there's a whole groove there, and that's what makes them work really well. So, if you just have a flying geese and it's made a bit bigger, you settle this on it and you slide it up and you will actually feel it lock right on that seam with that ridge. So the ridge right here will lock right on that when you slide
So
it
how
up.
did you make that flying case? Did you do half square
This
triangles?
one is a regular way, which I think most everybody knows, when you take your big rectangle and you put a square on it. So, guess I didn't have one of those because I figured everybody has done one of
I'm
those.
sorry.
Anyway, that was just one at a time, your typical way where you put your first square on it, you sew from point to point,
And cut off the
cut it
excess.
off, fold it back, and then do your other side. But we are going to go in detail about the 4 of a kind and about the foundation paper. So you just lock that right up in there, which is why it's called the block lock or whatever. And then you can trim your sides, right? And again, you can twist it by just putting pressure on both sides. So that's kind of nice. And if you have a sharp blade, which probably I don't, oh no, that's not bad for me, because mine are usually dull. Except I didn't get through that right there. So there you go. That one I really, really like because it locks it right in place. I do like that. But what I found really neat about this is, did you know that you can use this to square up block in a block?
Square and
Square and a square. Block and a block. Whatever you want to call it. So this is what is a square and a square. So if you start, one thing I will show you is that in the actual package, when you open this, this is the insert that's in it. So one side has the flying geese measurements for a bit larger. Then, so you look to see what size you actually want as a finish. So in our case, we wanted 2 by 4 finished. And it will tell you what sizes to cut your pieces, your squares and your rectangle, to have them a hair bigger so that you can then square them up with the ruler. But on the other side, here is your, for making a square and a square. So again, this tells you what to cut to make it a little bit bigger. So if we're saying that we want, after it's all trimmed up, we want a 4 by 4. So this is a 4 by 4 after I trimmed it. It tells you what size to start with. So there's your center. It tells us that we need a 3.5 inch square to start with, and that you need 2 triangles, squares that you then cut into, where's my 4th one? Right there. That you then cut in half diagonally. So you need 2 squares that are 3 by 3. And it shows you right there that you cut it from corner to corner. So then the easiest way to do this, I find, is to fold it in half and make a little crease on both sides where the middle is. And make your little crease halfway there. And you're going to start by putting 2 sides on, right? So Deb, do you want to sew?
You probably can, because then I'm just... Well, then I can keep the camera
I
focused.
can't even get my leg in there. Okay. That's not even straight. Good thing we're squaring up. So it's suggested that you do your 2 opposite sides first. And you see how it hangs over? That's why if you mark the middle on both pieces, you know that you've got it centered for when you square up, that your point isn't too far to one side or the other, right? I'm drunk because I'm sideways here.
Well, you're not sitting straight on.
I'm not.
trying to
I'm
get
leaning
away.
off to the side. And we don't have an iron. So there. So you put those on like that. Now you could either trim that straight across at this point. We don't even have an iron set up in here. This is going to be cute.
But you've got another one to show the demo.
Well, except
Squaring
it's
it.
already squared. But I can
okay.
show you.
Okay.
This one won't be perfect because we're kind of making do here.
Oh, I was quilting on that machine, so I made my stitch length longer. Did you notice?
No, I didn't even notice.
That's okay.
It'll be
It'll
fine
be
for
fine
this.
yeah.
Yeah. You were quilting.
Well,
Okay. So now we're going to pretend that that's all nice and neat and pressed and sewn straight and whatever. But then you take your lock block and you're just going to settle it right up in there the same as you did for your flying geese. See how neat that is? You trim your two sides and flip it around, settle it right up in your thing again, which it isn't settling because I don't have it pressed good, and trim your two sides.
Nice.
Yes, so it works really good for that. So I thought that was neat.
That was, and that makes it more versatile.
It
makes
does.
it more worth its money.
It does. So that is actually right on the
On the
sheet
paper.
that comes in with them. And I think, regardless of whether you buy like a single one or whatever, I
That
think
sheet's
that
there?
sheet is in it, I do believe.
Okay.
So I really, really like how they settle in and lock in for trimming. I find it really makes it nice and accurate. I guess what I don't like is that you would have to have all your individual sizes,
Right.
right? That would be the downfall for me.
Yeah.
Now, these are probably your most common sizes, the three that's in this pack, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're looking at,
Can I get, and I'm just going to say, Lynn Noggle, can you say hi to me? The last message I've seen is Wendy Muse, and I'm just wondering, sometimes our comments freeze up. So Lynn, can you just say hi and see if I'm seeing that? Because I'm scared people are asking questions and we're not seeing them.
Yeah. So this is the ultimate flying geese ruler. And this one actually does multitude of sizes. So if you can see here,
This has been the most popular selling ruler in the shop. Well, no, slotted trim rulers are, but oh, there
there's
we go.
1,
we got
2,
it.
3,
Thanks,
4, 5,
guys.
6, 7, 8. There's 8 sizes on this ruler. So
Yes.
I really like that. So financially too, this one is probably a better deal.
And that's the only one you use.
That's the one I use. Although I really must say that the lock block, I liked how they felt, like how it locks in there and whatever. I really did like that. But I'm also a person that doesn't want 30 rulers kicking around my table and having to dig for the right size. And this one, you just grab it, right? So this one, there is a bit of a trick to it for anybody that hasn't used it. So if you can see here, there's one side that says trim number 1, and there's one side that says trim number 2.
Yep.
So you always start with your trim number 1. Then you have to look. Let's get a piece of plain paper. Ha! There we go. Then you have to look over here to see the size that you're going for. So for a finished size, if we wanted a 2x4, which finished means after it's sewn in the quilt, right? So if your pattern was having you make one that you were squaring up to 2.5 by 4.5, that would be that size because it's unfinished at 2.5 by 4.5, finished at 2 by 4. So that's the one downfall I find of this ruler is I don't know why they didn't put the unfinished size there.
Right.
Because usually in your pattern, it's telling you to square up
Right.
to the unfinished size. So I can see for maybe someone new that being confusing, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we
So
want,
that ruler runs about $49, I think.
it's in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Carmel, you're going to have to send that message because I won't remember that tomorrow.
So we see that to do the size we want, we are looking at letter D. So we go over here and we find the D peak. So the D peak is right there. And you may not see those white dotted lines. So every other line, this is black, this one's white, this one's dotted. So it's the D one that we want, and this is what we're going to settle into our V right there, okay? So we're going to take our flying geese. We're going to put our dotted line up in that hill there, right?
D, because that's what the...
D, because that's what the instructions told us over there. And you're going to trim your two sides. Then you're going to turn it over, and you're going to turn your ruler over. And again, you're going to look for the D. This time it's upside down because our block is upside down. You're going to settle your D in there. Except there we go. And you would trim your two sides. So that's how that one works, which I really like that it's the one ruler
It does all the
that
sizes.
does all the sizes.
Yep.
So just for comparison, these I think probably are nicer and they fit better. They don't wiggle, even though these have the
Grippy.
grippy. This one is easier to move a bit and make your cut not quite as accurate. And you have to look harder to get it lined up with that dotted line. Whereas this one, it just snaps right into place almost, but you would need all the different sizes. So that was sort of my downfall for that.
Shelley Crowell says she uses the wing clipper, which I've heard about that.
I know.
I've got no experience with that.
We didn't have one in the shop to demo.
Yeah.
So the other thing, we're going to talk about the 4 at a time flying geese method.
You know what, Shelley Crowell, if we did an interview with you on Sunday, you could do a demo of the wing clipper.
Oh, that Deb is always thinking, isn't she?
I think that's a good idea.
So I want to show you, if you don't have a special ruler, how you use, I guess I should get my white card out again.
Wendy's got a question. Is it the trimming we do wrong if sometimes we lose the point? Not necessarily.
No, it could be your sewing, could be a
could be,
little
yeah.
inaccurate too when you sew corner to corner or whatever. But that's one thing that it's easy to see with a ruler like this, is you know right away if you're going to lose your point, right? Like it shows up immediately. So if you don't have a specialty ruler, as long as you have a ruler that's at least as wide as what your flying geese is, and one that has a 45-degree angle line. So here's our 45-degree angle line, right? So what you would do is, we know we want this to finish at 4.5 from here to here, and I've already cut this one down, which isn't good. Probably cut this one down too, did I? Yeah, anyway, you'll see. Well, let's make a smaller size. Let's say we want this one to finish up at 3. So if we want it to finish up at 1.5 by 3, right?
Okay.
Correct? So we know we want it 3 inches wide across the widest part here. So you line your 45-degree angle up on this thing, and then you just move it down until this point is on here, but your size that you want is over on this line. So you've got to keep moving it down. Now see, I went too far because here's the 3 and it isn't lining up. Can you see that?
Right, yeah.
So I've got to move it up a bit. So it is a bit friggy, but you can do it if you don't have a specialty ruler. So your 45-degree mark is on that line, your point is on that line, and your 3-inch is over here, right? So then you're going to trim those two. Then you can turn it over, and now you don't have to really line up anything on your ruler anymore. You can line up your two sides that you
Right.
just cut. So we know we want 1.5 by 3. No, that's not the right size. I picked the wrong size, didn't I?
That's it right there. That'll be fine.
Yeah. Anyway, I picked the wrong size when we adjusted it. So you just trim your other two sides, and you'll see right away that you have your 1/4 inch mark from the point up there. So the important thing is that your first step, so on this one, if you want it to be the 4.5, you're going to take your 45-degree, put it on there. Your 4.5 is there. Oh, this one hasn't been squared up. There we go.
Okay. I'm going to get in close.
Yeah. So our point is on that one. Our 4.5 mark is over here on this line. And now we want it 2.5 by 4.5, but these two sides are already trimmed up, so we just line those two sides up with our 2.5 inch line and our, and I can't see because I've got a glare. There we go. And you trim those.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and there's
Okay.
your, dropped it on the floor. And then you can see that you've got your 1/4 inch at the top. So you don't need a specialty ruler, you just need one that's as wide as what your measurement is at the widest part. And a 45-degree line. Yep.
Okay.
So you'll be able to do that.
Sandy, sorry to hear about your husband. We will definitely pray for his speedy recovery. Yeah, it's not good.
So the four at a time method, when you look those up online, your charts to do 4 at a time, make sure that if you want to be able to trim them up and make them very accurate, you need to find a chart that is allowing the extra size. Some of the charts give you just the exact size to make 4 at a time, and they assume that when you're all done, you're at the exact size you should be. So if you were off with your sewing, your flying geese might be off. So make sure that you Google a chart that says 4 at a time and that it allows for trimming. So I know for sure that this one is one of those. So what it does is if we want to make 4 at a time that finish at 2 by 4, which is going to be our unfinished 2.5 by 4.5, it's telling us that we want a 5.5 inch large square and that we want 4 small squares that are 3.25 inches. So then you put opposite corners after you draw your line with, where's that ruler? Right here. With something like this, you're going to have your 2 sewing lines because you're going to make 2 seams, right? So you set this one on here.
Let me get close to show where you drew the lines. Okay.
Can you see them?
Yeah.
Yep. So it's 1/4 inch from point to point. So if you don't have a specialty ruler, when you take a normal ruler,
You can draw the 3 lines if you needed
yeah,
to.
or you take your normal ruler and put the 1/4 inch mark corner to corner and then draw your line.
Hold still till I'm coming in.
Oh wait, I gotta find it. I want it where it will show a mark that they can see. Here we go, like that. See how I take the 1/4 inch mark and put it on the point? You would do that on both ends and then you could draw your line if you didn't have a specialty ruler like that, okay? So then you put your 2 squares like this. So can you see that? How the
They're
and you're going to
overlapping.
sew down both.
And you want them to overlap.
Yeah. Take your shoe off.
We're getting close. And
We are. I can't even reach. This is like when you're driving the car and your car seat's too far back from the pedal. You can't even reach the pedal. Good thing we're squaring these suckers up.
Well, it's easier for me just to hold
I know,
the camera than
I
to
know.
keep going back and forth.
These are going to be very uneven. Okay. So then you're going to take your ruler and you're going to cut, or your scissors, whichever you've got. And I don't have scissors, so I got to use my rotary cutter. And you're going to cut right halfway down the middle between those 2 lines and separate these 2, right? And this is the stage that when I first did this, I was like, okay, how is this ever going to make 4 flying geese? I couldn't get it at all. So then you're going to press these back, and you have these lovely mountains. See your
It looks
mountains?
like a bikini. Come on.
Oh, really?
Well, it does.
Okay, if you say so. I thought it looked like mountain peaks. So then your last 2, you're going to take them, and now you're going to put your lines going this way. You're going to put 1 on each one. So I'm just going to do 1, but you would put the other one over there. Somewhat match it up. One of these days we're going to get organized and be ready for these, suppose.
No.
And then you cut between those 2 lines. And then
Everybody thinks it's a bikini, not mountains. So there you go.
Oh,
Try.
really?
Yes.
You guys are all thinking way different.
Some are.
Thinking.
That's what
I
we're
guess you're
thinking.
thinking. Okay, and then you fold it back. So there is your, there's your flying geese.
So can you square that up with that yellow ruler again just to show them?
Oh dear, okay.
I know. It's
Okay.
not ironed and it's not going to be as easy,
Yeah.
but I just think that a lot of people haven't thought about using that 45-degree angle.
So we're looking for the 45-degree angle, and usually it is marked on your ruler, like, because there's numerous lines there. So 40, see, it has a little 45 there, but it's the one that would go
right to the
right
point.
halfway. It's not the ones that are off angled a bit. It would be halfway down your 90, right? So we know we want this to be 4.5 inches from here to here. It's 4.5. So we're going to put our 45-degree line on there. and we're just gonna move it up until we have this corner matching over there and the 4.5 mark up on that one there. And this line straight, and we're gonna trim.
Might cover your belly, Shelley, but it wouldn't cover my belly.
So there's your 2 sides trimmed. And then you can just go by your 2 sides that you just trimmed. So now we know we want a 2.5 by 4.5. So we're gonna put the 4.5 over here and move this down to 2.5. I should stand up because I can't see. Like that, okay. And then you trim those 2. And when you're done trimming those, you would have your 1/4 inch seam up at the top, and both of those seams go, the intersection go right to the points down there. Okay? So if you don't have your 1/4 inch up here, that's when you lose your point. Or if these 2 aren't centered down here, if that's off, so that that line, intersection line, doesn't go right to the corner, you're going to have a messy corner on that one too. So that's the 4 at a kind method, right?
Right, but you
So-
got one more.
Yes. So now,
Shelley.
give me those dice.
You can show us your belly when you do your FaceTime, Shelley.
X-rated. So now this is a method that a lot of people swear by. So I don't know whether you guys have seen the foundation papers. There's a lot of different companies that make these. This one is by It's So Emma, which is from the Fat Quarter Shop. But I know that, what's her face? Primitive Gatherings has a complete line of foundation papers. Usually they are for common quilt blocks, like half square triangles, flying geese. Sometimes you see them for, what's the snail?
Snail's Trail.
Snail's Trail, like I've seen them for that. Square and a square,
Yep.
you commonly see them for those. So they're very popular now.
We have them for Hunter Star too, though, I think.
They probably do.
I think so.
Yeah. But I guess the number one thing is that it is foundation paper piecing, but they are noted to be very accurate, and I must say that they are. Like, these are 2 that I did, because you know that I'm not a big lover of foundation paper piecing. So those are very accurate.
They are.
Like, they are. Like, there's your...
Yep. So Paulette said, did you have any tips for not losing your points? Just to sew it directly on your drawn line. Like when you're drawing on your line, make sure you sew.
So make sure that if you are not a person, like I don't pin when I'm doing that.
Right.
But if you're a person that as you're sewing, your top square is moving sideways compared to the bottom square, you're going to be off right there,
Yeah.
right? So maybe you need to pin those pieces together. I do know that there are people that use the glue for that. That they
Right.
use those little tubes of
Acorn.
like acorn or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So on the side that you are cutting off, so like with this one, this piece here that you cut off, that is going to be waste, they would put a couple dots of glue up there before they sewed to hold it in place. You wouldn't want to put it down here where you're
going to see it.
where you're going to see it. So you put it up on the piece you're going to cut off.
And it doesn't slide.
And it doesn't slide. So that would be the first thing I would say would be that. Draw your lines if you aren't drawing your lines and you're having a problem, like or use
Paper.
something on your bed of your machine to follow to get that straight line. But it's all, and the other thing is your accuracy in your cutting too. Like if you're doing one that's cut to the exact size, if that's what your pattern is doing, and you aren't, you know, if it tells you right from the start to cut 2.5 by 4.5 to make a 2.5 by 4.5, make sure your cutting is accurate, because if your cutting is off,
Yeah.
then when you go corner to corner, your seam's
So
going
if
to
you're
be
doing a
off.
flying geese, instead of drawing the lines, you could use that gadget we put on the machine last week.
You could, yeah,
Then you wouldn't have to draw
yeah,
a
or
line.
the what's the tape?
Yeah.
Cluck cluck sew seam
Seam.
diagonal seam tape.
Yeah.
There's that goes on it. There's the gadget we showed last week, which was the clearly perfect
Angle.
angle. Yes. Which I do have on my machine now, and I really like it.
Do ya?
I do. Yeah.
We've sold a couple last week after
Yeah.
they saw that.
Yeah. I'm not drawing lines. So that would be my thing. But accuracy also comes, I find, with time and practice. Don't you find?
It does.
'Cause,
Not
like-
being in a hurry.
Yeah.
Pressing it, I know pressing does help when you open it up before you square it. If it's pressed, because sometimes your seams, you have that
Yeah.
fold over.
Yeah. So that was one thing that that the block, I always want to call it block, but it's block. The half square triangle one, they had actually showed that in a demo, that if your seam was crooked because you ironed and twisted it a bit on one corner, when you put that down on it and you snug that right up against it, it would straighten that seam out like enough to correct it.
Yeah.
So that was a benefit to this.
Sandy says, what was the name of that ruler Twila used? The big square one. What size was that ruler? It was just a Quilter Select.
That one, or does she mean the Ultimate Flying Geese one?
I'm not sure.
So the square one that I used to just square up without a special ruler was just a Quilter Select 6.5 square.
Yes.
This is called the Ultimate, if that's the one you mean. It's
The
the
Ultimate
Ultimate Flying Geese. It's a
That's
creative
the one that you
grids.
normally use.
Yes.
Paulette wants to know if we sell patience.
No, because if we did, I'd have some.
We'd be broke.
No, that or you'd be making a lot of money because everybody would be buying it. Okay, so these papers, this particular brand lets you make 2 at a time. So it's like any other paper piecing. Start with this one tells you what size it makes a finish. So this one makes a 2x4. So again, that would be a downfall to this, is that you'd have to have the correct size paper, right? This one, start with your paper, your fabric, the same size as your paper, or a bit bigger, as long as it's the same, right? Then take your paper and just do a crease on those lines, just so that, and you can either eyeball it and do a crease, or you can use the, what's that called?
Add a 1/4 inch ruler.
At a quarter. So on these, one side is thinner and one side has a ridge. And if you use the thinner side and lay it right on there, it makes it really easy to just run your finger down there and make a crease.
And if you've got that nice crease, it tears off so much easier.
It does, but it also allows you, when you're laying your fabric, to see, especially in this one. So in this particular one, I would recommend with this, because it's bigger and because you're using cut pieces, which inside the cover, it shows you what sizes to cut for your squares. It tells you right there that you need a 3.5 inch square cut on the diagonal once for these pieces. So this one,
Send a private message for that, Sandy.
I wouldn't put any glue on the number 2s, because that's where we're going to start, right? We're going to do the 2 first. So I would just put a little gob of glue on those, and you put your fabric face down and your paper face up.
Say that again. Fabric face down.
Fabric face down,
And
paper
paper
face
face
up. So wrong sides together in this case. Then, because you've creased that, you're going to fold this back and you're going to cut this off, because in this case, you're dealing with triangles already. So you're going to cut those 2 sides. And that's why I find the glue in this case works better, because you're flipping it around, you're doing whatever, right? So there, we did the 2 number 2s is what we're doing, the 2 opposite sides. So then you take your little triangle, and it's like any other time, your 2 right sides now go together. And you're going to line that up on there, fold that back down. Now you can either pin this or whatever, but I would just take this to the machine. Oh, here we go. No pins. No pins.
Yes, you keep
Stuff
that
in the
1/4
way.
inch on. That's why you use the add a 1/4 inch ruler, Wendy.
And this isn't going to tear as easy because we got big stitches here. So you just follow your line, and I hope I didn't lose my fabric there because I didn't pin it or anything. and then we're going to do the other side. So we're going to fold this down. We're going to take we're going to put right sides together, line it up. So if you were to put glue here, you'd have to be careful that you were only gluing within that seam, because
It'll show.
it will show. Or stick a pin in it, but I quite often don't with paper piecing. I quite often just hold my breath and walk to the machine or give it to the machine.
Showing directly on the line.
Directly on the line between 1 and 2, because that's the step we're on. So then you would either press those back, and if you press with an iron, don't use steam.
Or you can use one of those little
You
hand
can use
rollers.
the little hand rollers, since
We
I have
sell.
neither.
Those hand rollers are nice.
Yeah.
Rollers.
So now we're going on to the number 3 side. So now where your stitches went out over the line, just tear it back. It's no big deal. And now we got to trim off the extra, so we're going to settle that ridge right on that paper. Trim across. We're going to do the other side. So where my stitches went out past, that's no big deal. Just tear it down, and it's only going to tear down as far as where your fold is, because then your paper folds, right? That's another reason why you fold. Saw it off, and now you're going to do the same 2 things again. Now this time, these may not look really good because I didn't press and I got to try to hold them flat. We're just going to cross your fingers and hold. And I'm not even on the line on that one, so that isn't going to work.
Well, maybe we'll have to square it down to get a different size.
So again, put that on, line up your 2 cut edges, flip your paper down.
That's all I know it's used for. Do you know any other use for the add a 1/4 inch ruler besides paper piecing?
No, that's the only thing I've ever seen it used for. I can't think of anything else that you would use it for with that ridge on it, right?
I don't think so.
So now, if you're lucky, I sewed that one on upside down.
It don't matter.
Yeah. So there. So now the next thing you would do is you would, your actual flying geese, where's my poker soap? So we know that this is supposed to be 2.5 by 4.5. So this outer line is nothing that you need to be worried about. I think they're just showing you that your fabric should be at least that big, right? So now you're going to trim across here, all the way around.
See, I would have thought you would have trimmed on the other line,
On which line?
the outside line.
No, because that's your 4.5, right? Right there, from there to there.
Okay.
Right? And it tells you right trim on this line. It shows you right there, right?
I've never used those papers before.
I can't
But
see
doing
myself.
the Admire patterns, we trim on the outside line. That's what would have confused me.
Right. So again, the thing that's going to either make these accurate or not accurate, it's only as accurate as your seam where you sew on the line. If you're off of the line, it's not going to be as accurate. Or when you trim up at the end, if you're not on your line, if your ruler goes cattywampus.
Cattywampus?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
In the-
Easy peasy
in the
cattywampus.
woods. In the
Easy
woods.
peasy
Redneck
cattywampus.
territory. That's where I grew up. Okay, so there is your flying geese, and you can see that your points are right on, and your 1/4 inch is right on. So, although this is friggy, I think if you battle with getting nice, even, this might be a good route to go. What?
You're sticking your hand and making it repeat it
Oh,
because that's where
okay.
I'm looking.
Yeah. So this might be the route to try if you're struggling with being accurate or whatnot. And then you just tear these off, which they typically would tear better because you'd have a smaller stitch length. So that's your 2 things with paper piecing is shorten your stitch length because that perforates the paper more closely and it tears off easier. And they suggest a bit larger needle, like a 90, a thicker needle than a thinner one.
Yeah.
But they come out quite quite good even with this big stitch.
Yes, Shelley, it is important to press in between adding pieces.
I don't know. That turned out pretty good for not being pressed.
It did.
So that's an option. But the downfalls to this, I think the big selling point would be the accuracy of this method. The other big selling point to this method is there's no waste. Because you're cutting your square in half and using both pieces, so you're not cutting off
That's true.
that flap, so you're saving fabric. The downfall is the money you're saving on fabric you're spending on papers.
That's true too.
So I guess there's always a trade-off, right?
You know, there's so many different methods. Just pick which one you like to do.
I know Lisa Bonjean, she uses her papers constantly.
Really?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
like the ultimate ruler.
I like the ultimate ruler. I could not be bothered, to be honest, I could not be bothered using that for a lot of flying geese. But the people who love them, love them. I think Lynn, is Lynn on there? Did she say anything?
Yeah.
Lynn, haven't you used some of those papers for
Yeah,
things?
Lynn said Chatsworth used the paper piecing method.
It did with those new fandangled flying geese, right?
Fandangled ones.
Yes, yeah, yeah, it did. But I thought Lynn had used them on something else. I thought I remember, but maybe I'm thinking somebody else.
She's being pretty quiet tonight. Lynn's behaving
She's
herself.
being good tonight.
She is.
Oh, amazing.
It's probably because we're not picking on her.
Yeah.
So we have something else exciting to show you.
I'm not sure it's going to show good. What do you think?
I don't know. Should I just stay here and you hold up from afar?
Well, I don't think they're going to see it. Oh, I don't think they're going to see the fabric.
Okay. Yes, I did, Wendy. It was delicious.
What did she bring now?
She bring me some garlic.
Bring me?
I've been hanging around you too long. Some hot pepper jelly.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Okay, so tell them what you're going to show them first.
Okay, so we've got a couple more weeks of the, what's that quote called?
Sewing bee.
Of the sewing bee
Yeah.
thing. And then our next sew along, like, we also have the block of the month coming up, which will
Right.
only be 1 week a month that will
Right.
devote
Probably
to
the
that.
last week of the month.
Or
by
the
time we
third or
get it.
something, whatever. We haven't 100% decided, but 1 week a month will be the block of the month.
Yeah.
And then we can move into our next sew along.
Which is going to be Twyla's design.
So
We're
I'm
gonna-
not sure that the colors are going to show good for you guys because some of it is subtle. And you got to look at it missing pieces because this quadrant down there that's missing is the one that with all the blocks that we have to show you in demo when we're doing
Right.
it.
Look at that
So
center.
just wait.
That's a good view right there. That's all you have to hold right there, Twyla.
Okay.
So there's options. Let's flip this now over onto the long arm, Twyla, so we can point out a few things that we're going to do a little.
Yes. So you guys get to see like my experiment. And now that I've done it, there's a few things I would do differently. There's something Deb would do differently that I probably wouldn't.
We're
But
all
I
gonna-
think we'll suggest it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you could see, but there's 2 backgrounds. There's the main background here, and then this corner here, all 4 corners is a darker background.
Yes.
And I think I would have picked one even a shade or 2 darker for
Okay.
those, to accent those corners a bit more.
Yes, Wendy, it's all batiks.
It is batiks.
When Twyla came, she didn't like batiks. Do you remember that, Twyla?
I do remember that.
Maybe
Now I
there's
love
hope for
batiks.
Sarah Lynn.
I love batiks.
I think Sandra Gregoire is the other one who doesn't like them. So my thing that I would change would be,
Deb doesn't like this being as light as it is,
Right.
but that was what I wanted. I wanted
That-
something that was more subtle in those 2 strips, and then the quilting will show more, I think, there.
yeah,
But Deb would do probably something darker.
look at that center. I
So
love
what
it.
I will tell you is, there are, besides your backgrounds, I think there's 4 fabrics that you need yardage for, and then the center, this is a jelly roll
Yes.
that picked up. So what I did is I tried to pick colors in my main fabric, my 2 main fabrics, and then pick a jelly roll that accented some of those finer colors that are in that, which I don't even know if you can see in this dark one, that there's oranges, there's turquoises, there's kind
Yeah,
of a
it's
gold,
beautiful.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of subtle colors in that.
So the nice thing is, it just takes a yard, other than a jelly roll, of all the accents. And you guys have been buying Friday Night Frenzy fabric for a while.
So there's four. There's this one here, this dark one, and that's this dark up here.
Yeah.
There's this one. You would need, if you decide, whichever one you decide to go with the border, you would need more of that one.
Yeah.
So that one I chose for my border.
That's right, Wendy. That's what she said. They were all dirty, murky looking. Now they're vibrant and beautiful.
They are. And then there's this one. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fabrics besides your jelly roll.
And besides
And
whatever
your
you want it for
background.
your border.
Yeah, and your border.
So what I would do with mine, instead of putting that orangey, tell them what I want to do with mine.
So when I did this, because I have figured out the yardage, and I can tell you that you don't need any more than a meter for these 4, and there's one of them, which I can't remember right now, doesn't even need a meter. This jelly roll was way more than enough to do this center part. I am almost 100% sure you would have enough left over from your jelly roll to do this.
That
if you
scrap.
wanted more color here, you could take
That's
your
what I would
scraps
do.
from that, because these would work.
Yep.
And just scrappy those
I would
lines.
continue. That's what I would do.
Yeah. So that's your option.
And we have jelly rolls. We've got lots of petite jelly rolls. And we've got some jelly rolls coming out on sale on Wednesday, but they're not petite for those of you that don't want to do petite.
But if you wanted to do like a, say for instance, you wanted to do like a Sherry and Chelsea jelly roll or whatever,
Yeah.
you should, it's only 4, well it wouldn't even be 4, because if you guys use your leftover jelly roll for this, it's only 3 coordinating fabrics that you've got to pick beside your backgrounds to go with it. So
Yeah.
that would be easy to do, right?
Did you name this? You designed it. Did you give it a name?
Not yet. How about around the block?
I'm colored around the block. Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, we'll see that
kinda
center.
goes- it kind of goes.
It's kind of got like a barn raising effect. You know, like the log cabin barn raising. You know?
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So, and like, look, you guys, I've even got, here's my border hanging down there for when I add that quadrant.
Rings of power.
So I'm not going to tell you the exact size of this yet, but I can tell you that it's a good size queen.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to put your last border. If you just wanted to bind here, you could, right?
Right. It wouldn't
Or
be
you could change, and it is square. So if you don't like a square quilt, you could change it up by making your top and bottom border a bit wider, right? Yeah.
So that's going to happen in probably about 3 weeks. So next Monday night when we're in here getting ready for the sewing bee, what we're going to do is we're going to take some jelly rolls and we're going to find coordinating fabric
And we'll show some pictures.
and we'll show some examples of colorways that would look
Yeah.
good in that.
Yeah.
You said that background took like 6.5.
The main background takes 6.5. You could probably get away with 6.25, but there's a lot of background in it. And then you need around a meter of the darker one. Now, you don't have to go with a different
You
one
could
there.
stay
You
in.
could use the same,
Yeah.
whatever you wanted, but if you do change it, you need about a meter of that
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So.
I don't know, Marilyn, because we probably would have something that would coordinate with the jelly rolls, but the jelly rolls that are coming out are older lines that we probably don't have fabric.
Probably don't have exact matching fabric, but
we
you
would
might be
have
able to find some
coordinating
coordinating
basics
stuff.
that would
Yeah.
go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be pretty, Twyla.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, you want to say
You guys
goodbye?
You guys are straining my brain, coming up with ideas. Like,
Well,
look
you
at the
brain-
bags under my eyes.
You can blame everybody
I know,
on
I'm
that.
gonna blame you guys for that. Okay,
Okay,
guys.
that's
Have
it
a
for
good
tonight. Bye-bye.